is Seth, and welcome to Songwriting. So this is the final episode, and we are going to tie together everything that you've learned so far. So we're looking at lyrics, we're looking at melodies, and we're looking at chords. And we're going to put all these together in the process of writing a blues song. Blues is a fantastic way to start out songwriting if you're not overly confident with it, because there's very definite guidelines as to how to write a blues song. So there is a common style of writing lyrics with repeating bars and answering phrases, and there is a very famous chord sequence which pretty much every blues song follows, the 12-bar blues, and there is a definite scale which is applied to blues music called the blues pentatonic scale. So let's get into it. Okay, first we are going to look at chords, because chords is probably the most easily recognizable feature of blues music. It's the 12-bar blues, which is a repeating pattern that happens for 12 bars. And this is so commonly found throughout all blues music that it's sort of like the signature sound to it. There are variations in terms of where the chord sequences land, so you can play with it a bit, but the common sequence sounds a bit like this. And so on and so on, and it repeats. To simplify that down, that was played in a sort of bluesy style. The chords are 4 bars of 1. So this is using the same chord numbering system we looked at in the last video. So this is 4 bars of 1. To the 4. For 2 bars, back to 1, 2 bars, a bar of 5, a bar of 4, and 1. The little bit there at the end is called a turnaround, and it's a way of moving through chord sequences to quickly to give movement, which then drives you onto the next section. So it could be or it's just a quick movement of chords which then gets you through to the next section. Another variation on this is adding a 4 chord pretty much straight after the 1 at the start, so going turnaround at the end. Another thing which gives it that sort of bluesy sound, which we'll come on to a little bit later, is the idea of blue notes. And these can be fitted into the chords by adding sevenths. So when we were talking about the chord sequences last and how you built chords, you had a triad. Well, starting on the E this time, so it would be E, G sharp, B for an E major chord. If you kept going up the scale, would be a normal major scale, but in the blues pentatonic scale, you have a flattened seventh. Sounds complicated, but it's so that note, a seventh note is flattened, which means pushing it down, the usual one would be, so it goes. And you can add that into your chord triad. So you're adding in the seventh note of the scale to the chord. You see the difference between the four chord? A normal four chord is, and a four chord with sevens. It's got that sort of bluesy vibe to it. And it gives that sort of feel. So if you can get the sevenths in as well, then that's extra blues. So I'll do it 2 times round. The first time I'll do it as standard chords, and then the second time I'll add the variations and the seventh notes in, so you can hear the difference between the two. Here you go. 1, 4. You've got your little turnaround to it. So have a play with that. You can choose whatever key you like to do it in, but you've got your chord sequences. So have a play around those chord sequences and see how it feels, and put some seventh notes in there if you can. And yeah, get your blues grooves on. Try that first, and then we'll come back and have a look at melodies. So now that you've had a chance to play around with the blues chords, I'll give you a scale which is called the pentatonic blues scale. So pentatonic sounds like a very good word. It means 5 notes in a scale. Penta is 5. Pentatonic, 5 tonics, 5 notes. And it sounds like... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What the pentatonic scale is doing is missing out notes from a normal octave. So instead of going for an E minor scale, you miss out the second, so you go straight to the third. You miss out the sixth, you go straight to the seventh. Build a scale of 5 notes. So you can use those 5 notes in the scale, a pentatonic scale, to make your melodies, and they'll sound pretty bluesy already, and those notes will generally fit over the chords which are in the blues scale. You can come up with melodies like that. That's all just using those 5 notes. But what you can do instead is add in things called blue notes. And blue notes are things which make it sound extra sort of bluesy, jazzy. It's commonly used in jazz, but you can use it in blues as well. And it's adding little passing notes between things so you get a more kind of bluesy sound. So it'll sound like this. That is adding a note between your third and fourth. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're essentially adding the major third in to move between. So, and then after your fourth note and in between your fifth note, another passing note in there. So. So if we're playing in the key of E, it goes E, G, A, B, D, and E again is your pentatonic scale. Now, adding in the blue notes, it goes E, G, G sharp, A, B flat, B, D, and you usually use these notes moving to another one, so either going down or going up. Landing on them by themselves can be kind of fruity, so. It's quite intense. Which might work, but usually they are passing notes going from one note to another. So yeah, have a play around with those notes and try moving up and down the scale and playing around with different shapes of melody using those notes. And then, once you have that, you can start applying them to the 12-bar blues chord sequence. So if you start playing around the chord sequence and then feeling about where those notes fit and where they don't fit, your ear will very quickly attune to how that fits within the style of the blues. So have a play around with those, get used to how it feels, and then we'll look at writing some lyrics for it. So the final thing to add is the lyrics. Now, the same rules apply that we were doing in our first video about lyric writing, but it's sort of, there's a structure to blues lyrics that means it's somewhat easier to come up with ideas if you're struggling to come up with things. So, the subject matter in the blues is really varied. It can be things which are really, really sad. It can be funny songs about people getting into trouble, or it could be all sorts of things. The subject matter doesn't really matter. You can write a song about pretty much anything. But it's the way that the lines are written which are quintessentially blues-like. So, because it's a 12-bar repeat, it's like you have two phrases and then you have an answering phrase. So it's like a call and response type writing style. So the way that a blues verse works is not so much verses and choruses, it's more like there's verses and they're interspersed with musical solos. It's not so much a verse and chorus structure like you'd have in a pop song. There's more kind of just verses, and then there'll be instrumentals in between the verses to add interest. So a verse structure in blues is usually 3 lines, and the first 2 repeat, and then there's an answering phrase. So it's like, I've got a statement, I'm going to say the statement again, and then I'm going to answer it. There's really loads of examples. I mean, this isn't it isn't the hard and fast way to do it, but it's a sort of stereotypical blues way. There's loads of examples of songs written like this. I'm going to show you the lyrics to Blues at Midnight by B.B. King. I would recommend loads of different blues artists to listen to. Howlin' Wolf, B.B. King, Robert Johnson, Son House, all these different musicians are quintessential blues guys, and they're a really good place to look if you want inspiration. B.B. King is a phenomenal lyric writer and guitarist, and this is his song Blues at Midnight. So we have a look at the first verse. It says, "When that midnight hour went chiming, I was in my room alone." And then he repeats it again. "Yes, when that midnight hour went chiming, I was in my room alone." And then he explains why he was in his room alone. "Yes, and when I came home this evening, I found my baby gone." So he says a statement. He repeats a statement for emphasis, and then he has an answering phrase, which is like an explanation or a response to what he said in the first time. So, second verse is, "Oh, I laid my head on my pillow. I gazed up at the stars above. I laid my head on my pillow. Yes, gazing at the stars above. I tell you, it's a miserable feeling when you lose the one you love." It's the same structure. It's that say a line, repeat the line, and then have an answering phrase. So this fits in with your chord sequences. The first 4 bars, it's like 4 bars per line. So the first 4 bars would be your first time through, and then the second 4 bars, which is your 4-to-1 chord, would be the repeat of that line. And then, so the answering phrase is when you go to that 5 chord, and then you have a turnaround at the end to go either into a new instrumental or into another verse. And you keep repeating the structure around. So you've got the building blocks of creating a song from that. Now, you've got your chord sequence, which is pre-planned. You don't have to worry about that. And you've got the notes that you can use to make it sound bluesy. And you know the structure of writing a verse is 1 line, repeat the line, and then have an answering phrase, which usually rhymes with that line. So the final verse of that Blues at Midnight track is, "Oh, I get the blues at midnight, and there's one thing I can't describe. I get the blues at midnight, and there's one thing I can't describe. And when you look at your baby's picture, the tears will come from your eyes." So it's not a full rhyme, it's a half rhyme at the end, because describe and eyes don't fit, but the I sound, I, describe, eyes, the I is a half rhyme. So they have a similar vowel sound in them, so that works. It's quite a common technique to use when you're writing lyrics as well, is to use half rhymes. So it doesn't have to be bang on red, dead, or one son, as in like father and son. You could use sun in terms of the sky, and that would be a half rhyme because it's spelt differently. It's not a direct rhyme, but the vowel sound is the same, the sound that you're making, and it can be a really useful technique for adding lyrics in that you don't think fit, but they do. So a good one would be hard and car, car. They have the same R sound in the middle. So it's not a word that rhymes, but it's a half rhyme. You can add those in. So you have the first line, that line repeats again, and then you have an answering phrase which has a rhyme at the end of it to those other 2 lines. So use your techniques from the other videos for the lyric writing. Choose something which you want to sing about. It could be a story that you're telling. It could be a message that you want to get across. You could be trying to tell someone that you're really angry, or it could be trying to tell someone that you're in love with them, or that you're really sad. All of these different subjects. You could be writing a story, again, about a dog that goes to a shop to buy sausages to build a rocket ship. And you could still write a blues track about that. So long as you follow the structures that are in place, the guidelines for creating these songs. So those are, to go over one more time, the 12-bar blues chord sequence, the blues scale, and the call and response style lyrics for each verse. So have a go at writing that and see what you can come up with. Thank you very much for watching these videos in this series. I hope it's been helpful, and I hope that you got inspired to write some new songs. Using the different techniques, there's no hard and fast rules. You can follow any of the things which I've said in these videos, and you can completely turn it on its head and decide that your way is better if that is what suits you. These are just suggestions, but yeah, try it out and see what you come up with. And remember that nothing's perfect when it starts, and you can just keep chipping away at things and working on it, or you can come up with an absolute blinder of a song straight away. Whichever happens, I'm super excited to hear it, and thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed.